Welcome to the UKOCR Community Podcast, presented by Obstacle Racing Media. Each episode, we'll be talking to race directors, elite runners, weekend warriors, and frankly, anyone else from the UKOCR scene that will talk to us. Here is your host, Alan, aka Muddy Duck.
Anywhere in Chicken Town. The bloody scene is bloody sad. The bloody news is bloody bad.
Greetings, friends, acquaintances, and anyone else who just happens to be listening. Welcome to another edition of the UKOCR podcast with me, the host of this one, Alan. I hope you're all doing really, really well. I'm going to jump in quickly because I want to get straight into the podcast. But just to let you know, sound-wise, this might not be the best one. We were losing connection quite a lot. So bear with us. I hope it's okay for you guys. I've tried to do my best to edit it and make it worth listening to, but I'm sorry. Let's get into it. It's almost that time of year. Europe's toughest mudder. We're all heading down. No, actually, we're all heading up this year, all the way up to the hills of Yorkshire. Or is it Lancashire? Wherever you are. We're in Yorkshire. I'm in Yorkshire. We're heading to Yorkshire. It's Yorkshire Tough Mudder, and this year it's the home of ETM, folks. I have got with me three guests. We'll go first with experienced ETM runner, Leanne Simmonds. Greetings, Leanne.
Hello. I don't know how far I'd go to say I'm experienced. I've done a few of them in varying guises and forms, but yeah.
You've done a fair few more than me. And then we have got two first-timers. One you might have heard of, one you might not have. So we'll go with the one that you might have heard of before. It's their first time doing TM. Louise Ferriman.
Woo woo! Yeah, I'm moving over to the dark side.
First of all, Louise, what's making you coming over to the dark side?
It was a bit of a challenge from a bit of a dare from the kids and Rich. They were like, "Oh, you've come away from the ultra stuff. You've been running too many short distances." They were like, "Doing this a challenge. They want me to do world's toughest next year." So I'm going back to my roots. So I thought I better do one tough mudder before I enter world. So I've got to do ETM. So I'm going in.
Oh wow, big time. And Sam Hall, again entering his first Europe's toughest mudder. Sam, greetings.
Hi.
You've got a bit of a distance to travel up to Yorkshire.
Yeah, I think it's about 4.5 hours. I'm Windsor, so I'm south of the M25.
Oh wow! And what's your thoughts
Sam,
about
I'm
ETM?
right next to you.
Where are you based?
I'm cooking. I'm right by you. I didn't realise.
Nice.
Sorry.
So therefore, I should really be like tapping in and learning all your knowledge. You can help me train then.
Well, you should come and train at my. I've built a training centre, literally 10 minutes from you.
Sold, 100%.
Yeah,
We'll definitely need to do that. I have no excuses now, do I?
That's all excuses out of the way.
No excuses. We can do this.
Yeah, definitely. So listen, we've got a bit of a plan. We're going to go through about tips on getting there, registration, pits, course, and then we'll finish off with whatever we've got to finish off with. But I'll pass it over to you guys. So let's first of all talk about kit. Sam, have you got any questions about kit for me or Leanne?
So kit, obviously I've never actually run an overnight race. I was supposed to be doing my first 12-hour hurricane heat in 2 weeks, or in a week, but I've had to pull out because of an injury. So I will never have run overnight before by the time I get to Europe's Toughest Mudder. So I freaked myself out watching World's Toughest Mudder on YouTube, and they're all like piling on wetsuits and looking like they're running in the Arctic or something. So kind of, are we talking, how cold are we talking? Bear in mind, I'm a fairly slow runner. I'm 16 stone now. So am I talking wetsuits? How thick? You know, what would your advice be on thermal stuff?
Leanne, I'll let you go first on this one.
So this can be quite a tricky question to answer, because ultimately it comes down to you and the type of runner you are. I run quite hot, so I don't generally go for as many layers. I've never worn a full wetsuit at a toughest mudder. I've worn a shorty, which has actually worked for me quite well over the last couple. So just to give you a bit of background for me, I've run a few of the Europe's toughest mudders. I've also been over to the States and I've run a few over there. And I've also run 3 worlds now. I would say whatever you decide to run in, you know your body best. So trust your instincts and what you think you need more than other people. Some people need full wetsuits. Some people do it in just a t-shirt and shorts. So listen to the advice, but listen to yourself more. You know what works for you best. There's some really great stuff out at Decathlon, which you can get, which does the job, like the shirts with neoprene and stuff in, which I've used previously, which are brilliant because they're not overly expensive, especially if this is your first and you're not planning on doing another one. You don't want to spend lots of money on expensive kit that you don't need. So I would say that would definitely be one of my first tips. And I tend to find as well, more important than a wetsuit is a windbreaker. Yeah. Because you're going to get wet. You're going to get wet, but that windbreaker is going to stop that wind getting you. And Yorkshire, as a venue, is notorious for being wet as well as hilly. But we'll get onto that. So that would be my advice: is yes, you might want to consider a shorty. It's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. And I've seen some really good racers turn up and just not do that, not achieve what they're capable of because they haven't got the right kit. So it's definitely better to have it there. And layers are great. And things like bleg mitts. And the other thing I would suggest as well that can be really, really good and has saved me on a couple of times is a neoprene hat. Okay. Because you lose so much out of your head. And especially if we have something like Arctic Enema all night, that can be an absolute game changer. So they would be, yes, some people need a wetsuit, but not everybody does. And you need to really kind of think about your race. Do you run hot? Do you run cold? Are you going to be going fast or not? I'm not particularly fast. I'm a plodder. That's just me. I'm working on it, but I'm not a particularly fast person. But I do keep going. So does that, I don't know if you've got anything else, Alan, you'd add to that?
I pretty much agree with everything. To me, definitely take gloves and take a neoprene hat. I always carry a neoprene hat with me. It's always inside my wetsuit. So I do run with a wetsuit. I start with a wetsuit. So I've done two. I've done two ETMs. The first one I did, I took my wetsuit off through the night. I took it off, but I started in it. And then last year, I kept it on all the way through the night because I felt the temperature last year particularly dropped, especially you can feel really warm, but then the moment you jump into some of the water obstacles, because you're going to get wet in block nets, you're going to get wet in Augustus Gloop, and I always think there's always two water obstacles open on the route, so you can cool down quite quickly. And I even found at the Midlands, when we jumped into that little stream, I was actually laying down in the stream to get the cold into the wetsuit. My wetsuit's a bit different because mine zips up at the front, so mine is actually a running wetsuit.
Yeah, I have a same one.
So I found I can zip it down, I can pull it open, and it's quite easy to get some fresh air in. But definitely always carry a hat with you. The moment you hit Arctic Enema and you're going up them steps, bang that hat on. And if you're in cage crawl, put your hat on because it really, really makes a massive difference to getting out. I learned that doing Tough Guy, the very first Tough Guy. When you're going underwater, you're getting your head wet. And you'll have learned that at Nuts, Louise. Going down to Nuts, you'll have learned a lot of submersions down there.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I've done like 4 laps at Winter Nuts or even at summer when you do 5 and you start to get tired, it's more as you start to get tired and start to make mistakes and slow down. And sort of sometimes when you go out in the open, the wind like you're saying about the wind, that can make such a difference. And I also think as well, have a bit of a plan of maybe, I was thinking of 3 stages of clothing. So I was going to start in my normal gear with my and then I was going to move on to neoprene chest vest and then move into a swim run suit, but also to have a bit of a plan of the timings of doing that, because I think if you hang around too long, that's when you get cold. And I've made that mistake definitely at Nuts where I've gone, I don't know what to wear, and I've stayed in the transition too long, and then I've started shivering because I'm not moving. So you almost need to have a bit of a plan of the timings. And I think that at Nuts, that's definitely helped me when I've written it down and my pit crew have known that is when I'm going to change and they know what I need and it's ready for me. Because otherwise, I think you start to get cold when you stop. That's the one thing
so
I would think.
I would absolutely agree with that. I'm the same. I'm one of these people that has a list, although I always know that I need to be willing to change that list. The other thing I'd add to that is make your decisions about what you need in terms of clothing at the coldest part on course. Don't wait until you get into pit and go, what do I think I need? Yeah. Make those decisions when you're on course and you're at the bit that you're struggling. And there will always be one bit that's colder or just sucks the most. Make the
Okay.
decisions at that point about what you need
Yeah.
when you come in, as opposed to when you come in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good.
I can understand you, Louise, going out in running gear. I mean, we you know, your ability, you're going to be right up there at the front runners and things like that. So I would assume that the sprint lap, that first lap, you're going to be going out all guns blazing. You know, if not taking the sprint lap for the women, you know, being up there in the top 3 or 4. You know, and that's just me watching you, because I know how competitive you are. I know how good you are as well. So, you know, I can see you up there. So I think that's probably the right decision for you. Go out light that first lap, unless it's raining, and I would make a completely different decision if it was me personally. But the windbreaker, as Leanne said, is a game changer, absolute game changer.
Yeah.
If you can get something really light and carry it, I've got a compressed sport belt. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's just like a mesh belt that goes round, and I've put that around me and just bunged stuff into it, especially the windbreaker, to carry it quite easily.
Yeah, good idea. That's great.
So I guess then to follow on from then, obviously it's very personal, but the 3 of you, any specific brands, any specific that you just really have got on with, that you know, that's my go-to because I love it. Obviously, other brands are available.
Are you talking about neoprene and layers?
Yeah, like I mean,
Yeah,
I've got a neoprene hat anyway. I've got some compressed shorts, sport stuff anyway. But yeah, like neoprene stuff, and because I just go with.
I use the Lomo.
The
Lomo chest vests are absolutely brilliant. I mean, I don't know, they're lighter, and I actually have an Orca swim run suit, and it's just so easy to run in, but it just gives you that extra layer. But these guys might think you need more, you know, more layers. It's only sort of 2 mil, but I don't know what you guys are running in.
So my last few toughest have been, I've actually worn an Arc shorty swim wetsuit, and it is amazing. It wasn't cheap, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
To go back to what I said earlier, prior to my running in that, actually the stuff that I found worked best for me was the cheap stuff I got from Decathlon.
Yeah, I've heard
they've got some brilliant tops that are like a neoprene base, but the sleeves are kind of more thermal like, and again, trousers where they're not full neoprene, but they're quite thin. But that's all for me. That's all I've needed, along with, and I'll also have like a jacket as well. So if I need to layer up and go on top, but they're quick and easy things that I can add to them. There are so many expensive brands out there and so many things you'll hear people talk about that are brilliant bits of kit, but actually, especially if this is your first one, I don't think it's worth going out and spending all that money on until you know there's cheap stuff out there that works and works well. I know quite a few people that run in the Decathlon stuff, to be fair.
Yeah, my boys do. I put my boys in all the neoprene, in all the Decathlon stuff. Yeah.
Mine, I have a Zone 3, but that's just, I'm a Yorkshireman, so I looked for the sales, and the moment the sales came up and it went, yeah, that's a bargain, I'm having that. That's why I bought it. It's 2 mil, it's like yours. Mine's only 2 mil as well, because it's a swim, it's a run swimsuit.
Yeah.
But
I just think the access.
Yeah.
The access at the front.
6. I did 6 tough guys, and I've done 4 or 5 nuts, which are probably the toughest OCRs out there when it comes to water and that. I did them with really cheap rash vests. And I mean, I think it was $19.99 from Amazon for a rash vest. And I bought a pair of decent neoprene shorts, which I think were 30 quid for shorts. So 50 quid it cost me, and I've run in them for a long time. One thing I don't do, and I've tried to use them, is use neoprene socks, and I can't use them personally.
I use seal. I've got some sealskin.
Right. Yeah,
the sealskin
ones, I've used them, and I find them okay. But they're like a mixture, aren't they, of like normal socks and that. Yeah. I just can't.
Someone said to me about Shark Skin as a brand as well, but I've not looked at them yet. Someone, I think it was one of the lot on the Legionnaires group on Facebook was saying that they shark skin neoprene stuff and it dries really quickly, but I've not looked into it yet because I knew I was talking to you lot, so I thought I would ask the experts.
What shoes are you planning on running, Louise?
VJs, of course. VJs all the way. Yeah, 100%. I will take 3 pairs. I'll probably transition into some harder lugs you can tell I haven't really thought about this a lot, but some harder lugs when it gets a bit muddier, I think. I know it's all going to be muddy, but I think, depending on the weather as well. but I'll have Sparks and I'll have my extra XTRMs out there as well.
That's a good call. I'm
think
a
that's all right?
BJ fan, as people know, so I will take in my XTRMs. I will probably run in Innovate Trail Flies for the sprint lap,
Yep.
and maybe the first lap afterwards. Okay. You can usually get through the sprint lap and at least half of another lap before the obstacles open. So it's quite, if you've got something with very minimal grip, providing it's not raining. Yeah, you know, if you've got something like trail shoes, you should be fine for that 1.5 laps. And then
so Sparks.
Sparks,
Perfect.
yeah.
This is news to me that there's a sprint lap. I'm just turning up and running for 12 hours. I have no idea. So thanks for that.
Okay. Leanne, do you want to explain about the sprint lap and what it is?
Yeah. So, I mean, firstly, I'll say I'm slightly different to you guys because I'll have one pair of shoes and once they're on, they'll stay on. So I'm a ultra lone peak girl. But part of the reason for that is because I have to wear ankle braces because my ankles are chocolate. And I find it's a pain in the arse to get them right. So once they're on, they ain't coming off. It's just simpler not to.
Yeah.
So Europe's toughest has been slightly different to how they do it in the States up to now. So over here, generally, the first hour, minimal obstacles will be open. And then the start open on kind of is generally on the. What's a little bit different over here is they, at some points, some of the close. And normally, we will not find out what the open times are. Historically, we haven't always found out what time the opening and closing times are. So it's that mental mind game. That being said, if I recall correctly, I think last year when they sent out the info pack, they did actually put opening and closing times of obstacles on, which was different to normal. So we might get that again this year. But in the States, I found when I've done it over there, they'll have the first hour with minimal stuff open, and then they'll gradually open, but everything, once it's open, stays open, it doesn't close. So over here, we have that kind of opening and closing, and you generally haven't always known what that is. So kind of we'll know better how that's going to go when we get the info back. I like it. I like the not knowing, to be honest. It really plays with your head, and you'll have those moments as well where the volunteers will know, might know, they don't always know. And if you do manage to find out, or they know, they'll start screaming at you before you can get to an obstacle. And you'll have those moments where you just start sprinting because you're like, I want to get past this before I have to go through it on some obstacles. Or sometimes you might be like, oh, actually, I could really, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but this has happened to me on the toughest. I've been a bit like, if I hold on a second, Arctic's going to be open and I can actually do with the cooling down. So I might just slow down a little bit so I can go through that. But yeah, so does that answer the question?
Yeah.
I think that'll be good for my ADHD brain. Don't know what's coming. That's what I like. Surprise!
Yeah, just embrace the chaos.
Absolutely.
Are you a shoe fan, Sam? What shoes are you running in?
I run in Asics. I'm completely flat-footed. I'm hypermobile, and I train all my training apart from running in barefoot toe shoes. But I do all my running in Asics at the moment, and I keep putting in my basket. I keep putting in the Innovate Ultras, the Mud Claw Ultras, thinking I need something with a bigger lug, and then go, I don't need a fourth pair of trail shoes because my wife will probably divorce me. But yeah, mine are just trail shoes. They haven't got massive lugs on them, so I'm thinking it's an excuse to buy some Innovates.
You'll be fine to start with, but as we get through the course, especially Mud Mile, as Mud Mile gets churned up, because bearing in mind they'll have had all day Saturday, all the runners, there have been 5,000 runners go through Saturday morning, then we're going to get to go through Mud Mile, and Mud Mile is the one that is usually open all night long, from start to finish. And if you are just in trail shoes at that point, you are going to struggle to get over them mounds. So yeah, it'd be advisable, especially.
I mean, I as I say, I use Lone Peaks because I used to be a barefoot runner, and then because of varying issues, I've had to get a bit of extra padding, which is why I've gone to the Lone Peaks because they're still a zero drop. But I need that wide toe box, and I tried Mud Claws, and the lugs on them were great, but the shoes themselves weren't wide enough for me, which is why I've repeatedly gone back to Lone Peaks. And I don't think the lugs on those are massive. And I've learned the hard way of wearing an old pair. Don't do that. Don't wear a really, really old pair because they've just got a bit worn down. But I don't normally have that much of a problem when it comes to grip when it gets muddy in them.
Alan, do
Yeah.
you remember the mud mile at the Spartan at Viva Castle?
Yes.
You definitely
yes.
wouldn't have got through that in a pair of Asics trail
No.
shoes.
And the thing is, as well, at the mud mile in Yorkshire, it's actually very deep. So if you go to Beaver Castle, they tend to be very rolling. But when you're in Yorkshire, they are, if you're jumping into the water in Yorkshire, you can't see over the next mountain, no matter how tall you are. And I've seen Sean Merriweather at Beaver Castle actually leap the ditches, but he can't leap them in Yorkshire because they're much steeper and the gap is much bigger. So you do need a little bit of grip in my eyes in Yorkshire. Slightly different course. It's all ill and it is super slippy. I think you run through a little stream beforehand, so your feet are wet before you even jump in it. And that's
Good info.
Also, the mud mile you had at Beaver Castle last year was, if I remember rightly, a week after ETM had been.
Yes.
So
Yes,
you'd
it
had
was.
a whole
Yes.
weekend and an ETM of people going through that already before you guys went through it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Right. Sorry about that. I dropped out a minute. So ASICs are a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get yourself. They do the VJ have just brought out a new wider toe as well. Have a look. I'll message you after. I'll get you a discount.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I need something, and actually, if I can get them before Midlands, I can trial them out at Spartan Midlands and actually get a feel for them.
Definitely. Any other questions on kit?
What did I have? Not necessarily running kit, because I mean the general rule is going to be running what you know, obviously layering up, etc. Stuff like, obviously I've never run in gloves, anything like that. So you were saying about the mitts and keeping your hands warm. I bought some from Spartan, which looked like the ones that Evan recommended to me. He's the one that pushes them on for World's Toughest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I bought Spartan's version of those because I happened to see them at Henley. But yeah, anything else like hand warmers, stuff that I'm going to want to have in my pack on me. And am I running, because it's only 5 miles, I'm assuming I'm not running in a pack. I'm literally just using whatever I've got on me at the time, running with a running belt and just replenish it every lap. But
again, it kind of almost comes down to personal preference. Some people choose to run with a pack, especially if they're slower or they're going to be out of course. I run with a belt, which I'll have my nutrition and stuff in, which I take with me. And I also run with a little bottle that I can fill up if I need to out on course at the water station. But a lot of people just leave everything in pit and just go out and do their lap, and they'll come back and then go whatever they need at pit. So whereas other people, as I say, will take a full bag with the music system.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because
because
because you're lapping, I'm guessing you're not going to be out. Yeah, it's 5 miles a lap, is it?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
So then you'll get your main bulk of your fueling you'll do in your pit.
Yeah. There's usually one stop on course which only has water. It has no nutrition, just water available.
Sorry, I'm just going to see who's at my front door. I do apologise.
Okay. So on course, there's usually one water station and then back in pit. And you usually run through pit. So you cross the finish line and then you're in the pit area, and then you'll run from the pit area, just continue through it to go and back to the start line again. So yeah, it's quite easy to. I don't carry don't carry any fuel with me whatsoever. I don't carry no gels on course. Mine will all be back in pit area. I'll tell you what I do when we talk about pits in a bit, just for my own thing. You might get tips from me, you might not want to do it. I'm pretty anal with it, but I'll give you my tips for my pit. But yeah, you don't really need to carry anything on course unless you think you're going to be out there for a couple of hours. And I would say, take a little bag, pop some gels in, pop some nutrition in. Especially in the night, it's going to get cold. It's going to get lonely at some point. You're going to have conversations with yourself. Why are you doing this? You're starving. You're not starving. Take something with you.
it seemed like such a good idea at the time. What the hell was I thinking?
Yes,
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I love those conversations.
I strangely quite enjoyed my ultra. I did my first Spartan ultra last year, and I didn't realize I enjoyed my own company so much till I was on lap 2 and had a bit of a hypo moment and hallucinating, but I actually quite enjoyed it.
Let's talk registration, because there is some tips for registration. So registration opens at 2, or usually opens at 2.
Okay.
And it's a little bit strange because registration is also first come, first served, and it also for pit areas. So ideally, you want to try and get there half an hour early. I'll be real honest with you and say half an hour, 40 minutes early.
You've just told everyone.
Sorry, Lou. I think we've lost Leanne there. I can't. She broke up. As I was saying, from my point of view on pit area, I like to get there half an hour, maybe 45 minutes early. Last year they were queuing from an hour. I think I got there at 45, and I was about 10 or 12th in the list. But yeah, some people are going to get there definitely an hour earlier. When you get there,
an hour before 2 o'clock.
Yeah. So registration is open at 2 o'clock. If it opens at 2, get there for 1, 1:30, no later than 1:30. Just take something you can, so you don't have to take all your kit to registration with you. So, and I learned this last year. So I was carrying all my kit. I was carrying my tent. I was in my gazebo. I was carrying all my running kits. Just take something where you can then get your pitch and you can mark your pitch. So a couple of bags, or one gazebo folded up, whatever you want. So you can go register, get to the pit area and get your plot, because there's good plots and there's bad plots.
Do you take your own? So you take your own tent?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You don't have to.
Yes.
I need to get shopping.
Yeah. So, you're not going to be in there long. It's just something you can just shelter. You can even share mine if you want. There's no problems with mine because I'll be taking the gazebo. So people are welcome to share mine. I don't mind that at all.
So you basically put up a gazebo.
2-man things.
So I would suggest it's advisable to have something, and if you can have something that you can stand up to change in case you do need to do changes and the weather's horrendous, it gives you that respite. Because if you are swapping into wetsuits and it's chucking it down with rain, being able to do it somewhere where it's dry is going to make it infinitely easier than wet. That being said, I have also turned up to these things with just a kit bricks and been fine. Although those tend to be when I'm abroad and I'm on limited plane travel. But and the looks you get, it's hilarious when you've got this space and there's 2 of you in one space and you've both just got a kit bricks and that's it. That's your race plan in a kit bricks.
Right, so if anyone wants to sponsor my gazebo, I'm putting it out there now. I need a gazebo. Anyone?
So I take a gazebo and I take a chair, because there's times when you want to get a chair and that. So literally, what I will walk onto registration with, I will take my chair and a gazebo, and I will literally go there, get my spot in the pit. I like to get near the front. Sometimes you don't know which side's going to be front, which side's going to be back. We've been quite lucky the last 2 years, I think, in knowing that. But it is a case of, and you can't save spots. So last year there was really adamant there were no saving spots last year. The year before we did, and it was literally when you went into that pit and queued up, they allocated you the next spot. So it was last year. It was a little bit different from the year before. I don't know about, you've done it a few times then. Last year was different to previous years, everyone tells me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I can't remember being allocated a specific spot last year, but it may have been that I was slightly later and the people that I was sharing my pit space with had got there first. But I do remember seeing that. I do remember seeing that kind of there were people queuing and then being told, go here, go there. So yeah, I don't know what it's going to be like this year. I don't know if they're going to do that again or if they're going to leave it slightly more relaxed and down to you to choose.
Yeah. I agree. But it's just be mindful of that you're going to need, and as Leanne said, I take a gazebo because I want to be able to stand up and get changed in. You know what I mean? If I'm not going to set off in my wetsuit and I want to put it on, or I want to take it off later on, I want somewhere where I can stand up and rather than be crouched down in a little 2-man tent, it can be a little bit awkward. Bear in mind, you can just do it out in the open. No one sees things anyway when we're all running and tired in the middle of the night and stuff like that. So, So, let's quickly go on to talk about pits. Are you an organised pit person, Leanne, or a non-organised pit person? Organised.
Yeah, remind me to send you a photo of our pit set up from Worlds, which is essentially exactly the same we use for toughest. It is like people were coming over and just going, oh my God, your pit's amazing. So I'm quite an organised person. In a previous life, I used to be a stage manager. So I used to work backstage. So for me, my pit has a table which has everything is lined out and marked and written, and everything has a place. I have sandwich bags which I pick up in between each lap with my food and nutrition, so I can just grab it and go. And yeah, it is a very organised area. That being said, my intention is to spend as little time in it as possible.
And that was
So
the
How many?
organise it so you spend as little time in as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can waste loads of time in the pits. Time flies when you're in there. I remember literally, I thought I was only in for 2 minutes this year, and I wasn't. I was in for like nearly 5 every time. You know, and when you're if you're going doing 8 laps, you know, that's 40 minutes you're in there in total. You know, wasted time.
Yeah.
You know, so just be mindful. Lou, I know you've got to shoot. Is there anything that's burning from you, Lou, before we let you go?
Yeah. Can you have more than one pit crew? Can you have 2 people helping you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think yeah, you can. So I think I'd need to double check, but I think each person running can buy 2 pit crew tickets. But most people end up joining up and bunching up and having a group of people. So last year at ETM, I actually pulled out early because of an injury. So I only did a couple of laps, but then I jumped in and I pit crewed for, I think I ended up pitting for about 5 different people, all from one area. But yes, you can have multiples. And if you've got more than the minimum, the amount of people you can get tickets for, there will always be people who aren't using their pit crew tickets that will be happy to donate them. So it's just a case of kind of asking around. There is a Facebook ETM and Infinity specific group that is really useful for questions and things. You have to kind of show to the admins that you're signed up or doing it, and they keep that specifically so to keep it relevant. I am one of the admins though, so if you're not part of it and you want to be, just drop me a message and I'll sort it out for you.
Okay, fab. Yeah, I think it's my husband and like one of my best friends is going to come and help me, so that's cool. I think that's all right. I think you've made me thinking a bit more about getting colder later on in the evening, getting a bit more kit. Not taking it for granted that you'll be all right.
There's no weight, there's no fat on you, Lou. I know how little percentage fat there is on you. You may need it later. It depends if you run hot. It does depend if you run hot. So
yeah. And there's one more question. The terrain in Yorkshire, because it's tough mudder. I was thinking, it's going to be flat. It's not, right?
Yorkshire is not flat now. We don't know the course.
I'm excited.
So
yeah.
If it's 5 miles, I think if it's we know it's going to be 5 miles. I don't think they're going to take us right to the top of the hill. However, right to the top of the hill is where we get some of the better obstacles. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they might take us up there. I'm not sure.
It's going to be an interesting one. So previously, I've always said Henley is the steepest, hilliest course in the UK, but Yorkshire is basically one big up and one big down. And then last year, they changed the course up at Yorkshire. So it wasn't one big up and one big down. It was literally up, down, up, down. It was. I didn't think they could make Yorkshire hillier than it had been, and they managed to without going all the way to the top. So it's really tricky because we don't know what they're going to do. And I know, and they do lots to just work for it. So I would say anticipate and plan for the worst. Plan for it to be really, really hilly, and then if it's not quite so, it's a pleasant surprise.
Okay, and we literally don't get any info until 2 weeks before. That's it. They send you a pack 2 weeks before.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll send you out. They'll send you out the rule book, and they'll also send you out eventually the obstacle breakdown. Again, they never used to do that. That's something that's been brought in over the last few years. But yeah, they do send that out within those couple of weeks before.
So they send you a mandatory kit list as well. We get that Spartan Ultra of you have to have this on you.
Yeah, it's all within the rule book. The main things you need to have on you are a head torch and a flasher for the back.
Okay.
So that will be mandatory for going out on course. Will be your bib, a head torch, and a flasher. They won't let you the start line if you don't have that on another lap.
Yeah, just bear that in mind.
And we can just buy the flashers.
Yeah, flashers, or a lot of people wear glow sticks.
Okay.
A tip on the head torch as well, which I got from Will Chung in my first year, is to get a piece of like a bungee cord, thin bungee cord, fasten it to your head torch, and then fasten the other side to your bib that you're going to be wearing. Then if it comes off, you don't lose it. Yeah, it's going to just fall off at the side of you. It's still going to be attached to you. So yeah, I found that really, really helpful. There are going to be obstacles that could potentially fall off. Devil's beard, I tend to nearly always lose mine in Devil's beard.
Take it off and put it around your neck, and you're less likely to use it on Devil's beard. The other thing I would add to that as well, something I do when I get my bibs, I get those little what are they called? The little things that you have to adjust your cords. So rather than tie my bib, I can't think what they're called. Rather than tie my bib, I'll put one of those on it, or a buckle. It then means if you have to do quick changes, it's much easier getting it on or off than when it's tied and you're kind of fighting with it.
Okay. I better do a bit more than just enter. I better get planning, hadn't I?
I'd be fine. Just need to turn up.
Rock up and run for a few hours.
Maybe we need to have a chat and have like some sort of strategy meeting so we at least pretend that we're prepared for this.
Yeah, totally, Sam. Yeah, come down to the tunnel and I'll get you on the rigs and we'll have a chat.
Sold.
I feel
Thanks
like I
so
need
much,
to
guys.
from Cornwall.
No. Thank you, Lou. I know you've got to go. Sam, you stop on, and we'll come to you. But thanks for coming on, Lou, and good luck, and I will see you there.
Yeah, I'll see you there. I can't wait. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Sorry, Louise had to go. I know she was rushed. You all know she's at a festival tonight and enjoying herself and things like that. It's good to have her on. Anything else on the pit? Have you got any questions from any of the Legionnaires, Sam, for the pit area or things like that?
Yes, there's quite a few. So it was, do you run through the pit area, or do you just run along the track and your pit crew come to you?
So you can do it either way. Normally you'll cross the finish and the track will go through the pit, and it'll either be all on one side or there'll be tents on both sides. And then there's an area that you go off into pit and then you have to go back out. Your pit crew can only hand you stuff within that area between finish and start. Some people will try and quick pit, so that they'll have their pit crew waiting for them so they don't have to go back to the tent. I use that at Worlds. I don't tend to use it so much at Toughest, but then that's more because I don't normally have a pit crew at Toughest. So yeah, you can do either. That will come down to having a conversation between you and your pit crew and figuring out what's going to work best for you. If you're going to know exactly what you need and just want them to have it there and ready to go, then absolutely having them standing there for when you finish to get you back out is brilliant, because the less time you spend in pit, the better you will be, just because, as has been said, you'll get cold, you'll get tired. The longer you spend there, the harder it is to get back out on course. When I come in, I literally, as I say, I sandwich bag up my stuff. So I'll tend to just grab stuff and then go. And even if I'm walking and eating as I'm crossing the start line for that first half a mile, I'm not in the pit and I'm moving. So therefore that's better than standing in my tent and sitting and having it. Other people do that differently, but I know from the people I know that run this and are looking to really push their mileage, that kind of plan tends to work better for them.
And you already said about kind of sharing an example of like setup, because one of the questions was tips for setting up your pit area to make it really fast and easy. Obviously, we've kind of covered that already about table and timings and making just so everything's grab it and go and ready. So yeah, any other?
Again, everybody's different, and it is really hard to kind of, with all of this, there is no hard and fast rule of what works, because some people like to be able to just come in and it's all chaotic and whatever. Something I've recently started using as well is, those like cheap roll up things for like putting shoes in, or storage things that you can just hang up. I have that in a pit. And again, rather than having everything on the table, I'll have like my spare gloves or a spare head torch and stuff will be in that. So again, you can come in, and I've seen people use it for nutrition as well. So it's a really easy way to have stuff out without taking up floor space.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm very much like that. I know from my running what I will need on each lap. So I know that my first lap, I will just have just something there nutritional wise to grab down and some water, and I'll not have nothing else on lap one. Lap two, I will have a couple of salt tablets.
might have a paracetamol in there as well as some nutrition, and again, small drink. And again, I will be taking mine straight out with me. I won't be stopping. I will literally I'll be in the pit taking it, and I'm looking for 8 laps again. You know, a minimum of 8 laps. So I'm going to have 10 bags. My plan is to have 10 bags in case I can get even more laps in. But it's better to plan well ahead and not have to use it, rather than not plan right, and then when you get there you're wasting so much time in the pits because it flies. And especially if you're not on the front of the pit, so if you don't have a pit crew, or if you have a pit crew that's going to stop in the tent and wait for you, whatever, so you're coming in and your tent is 5 rows back, you can waste 2 minutes getting to your tent and back to the course. So then that makes it a 4 or 5 minute pit, where if it's on the front, and this is what I say about getting there early enough, you could potentially get a front spot, which does cut your time down. I've been quite lucky the last 2 times I've had front spots, because I've got there plenty of time, and it does cut your time down. Literally, you're in and you're going through the area, you're jumping into your pit, into your tent, you're getting your stuff, you're back out again.
The other thing that can be helpful, especially if you do end up being further back, is get something on your pit that makes it stand out for you, so you know what to look for when you're tired. So I have like festival lights that I put up on mine, because I know it makes it far easier for me to go, oh, I see it, and then go to it, especially when you're tired and you're a little bit confused. And, you know, even if you're running with pit crew, sometimes something happens, which means they might not be there when you expect them. So you have to be, and that's another reason that I do the organised side of things with my pit, because when I have had pit crew, if something's happened that means they're not available, I can still go in and get what I need, rather than going, I don't know what to do now because they're not here.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think we covered the other questions, which was like must have things for your pit crew. Like, do you need a chair? Do you need a table? Do you need gazebo? But we've already covered all of that. So I think that's the pit crew stuff. The only other one was there's a couple of the other Spartan ambassadors that are running this, and they're new people as well. So our plan was to kind of set up near each other. But I assume the only way you can do that is either share a pit crew or get there at the same time. So when we get allocated our pits, we get put next to each other.
Yeah, from last year's
absolutely.
thing, from last year's setup, get there at the same time, or you share a gazebo.
Oh.
What I would say, if you've got pit crew that haven't done it before, make sure they've got clothes enough to keep them warm and dry, and changes of clothes as well. And make sure you have those conversations with them beforehand, so that really make sure you're on the same page with what you're expecting of them and what they are expecting of you, because miscommunication can be really, really key. And the last thing they need to make sure they've got enough food and warmth to keep them going too, because it can be, I've pitted before as well as run. So, it can be really chaotic, or you can have these really long periods of time, depending on how many people you're doing or how fast your runner is, where you're just sat there and it's like, well, I don't know what to do now. So yeah, it's really important to make sure they're looking after themselves as well as looking after you.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, my plan is Mum's coming with me, but the plan is I'm going to effectively pit myself and just message her on one lap and go, right, next lap I need if there's anything major, so she can come and do it. But she can either be in the car or in the tent or wherever she wants, based on how cold she is, because I don't want to put her out. She's literally, the theory was she's coming to drive me home so I don't pass out on the motorway. But
yeah, of course,
I didn't want to burden her too much over having too much expectation, but I just don't want to die on the course. That's literally
you'll probably find she'll end up being there all night, like just partying away with people.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, the pit crew do help each other.
Where's the wetsuit?
Yeah, the pit crew do help each other, don't they? They're very much clubbed together, and they have their own little party. I've been pit crew once, and they send out for pizzas and kebabs, and there's usually someone doing a pizza run, and they go around, does anyone want pizzas and things like that in the dead of the night. So yeah, it is a good little
I
bit
always
of fun
seem to get missed with that. For some reason. In fact, the one time I didn't get missed, they brought me the wrong pizza. It was very upsetting. I think somebody who's going to remain nameless, but is a very well-known volunteer within the organisation, has got a secret vendetta. That's why it always goes wrong.
Shall we talk course?
Yeah, perfect.
Let's talk course. Yorkshire, we've alluded to this. We think it's going to be hilly. I think every Tough Mudder fan thinks it's going to be hilly. because we all know what Yorkshire's like. We're not 100% what the course is like. We do know that obstacles open at random, just at every other ETM, and the first hour is obstacle free. Have we got any questions, Sam, from the many people about what the course or obstacle wise?
No, no one asked anything about the course. Most of it was about pit and clothing. I put out. I've only ever done one Tough Mudder. I was supposed to have done 2 by now. I will not do a race if I don't get a medal out of it. So when you started doing medals, I started Tough Mudders. So I did Pippingford this year, which was relatively simple compared to what I'm used to with Spartans. I then watched Tough Mudder Henley and I got massive FOMO with some of the really cool obstacles. So I've got no idea what to expect other than block nest, pyramid scheme, lots of shoving my face in water. I'm guessing there'll be a really cool rig of some sort, which I'm fine with. Rigs, I train a lot because I'm heavy, and I train down at Obstacle Play Park with Mark, and he just abuses me because I
miss that play. So I used to live in Kent, so I used to go down to OPP, and I love it. And unfortunately, I now live in Cornwall, and there is nothing here at all. So my obstacle technique over the years over the last year or two, as I have to say, suffered slightly. So I can massive shout out for OPP whilst you mention it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, so
sorry.
Yeah, I've been really lucky. I did one of their the Spartan Open days there, and Mum, bless her, Mum's started training when she was 64 and did her first Spartan sprint at 64 at Pippingford because she was supposed to be coming to drive me home after my first ultra. So I did the ultra trifecta for the first time, and she went, "What if I'm coming?" and just ran her first sprint with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so hence I've ended up this year. I'm training with the Op Warriors and with Mark, so I'm really lucky with my technical side of stuff. But obviously, in terms of the biggest differences for me going from Spartan to Tough Mudder, I have no idea what to expect. So, kind of obstacles that you hate, obstacles that you love, and anything I really need to go and practice before I come.
Shall I go first, Leanne?
Yeah, why not?
With Tough Mudder, we know what the all obstacles will be. We just don't know what order they're going to be, and we don't know exactly what's going to be on course. So we know there's going to definitely be block nest. There's always block nest on there. There's always Arch Kennyman, and there's always Funky Monkey of some kind. They mixed it up last year. It was a little bit more difficult. So we know they're going to be there. There will always be Kiss of Mud. At some point, there will always be Mud Mile. And then after that, it's really what they want to put in. Yes, there's usually a little rig there. It's nothing usually too technical. I find it quite difficult because I'm over 6 foot tall, and it usually tends to be quite low. But there used to be rigs, or it's usually rings or something like that, which you can usually navigate. Now, with Tough Mudder, some of the obstacles are mandatory. In fact, they're all mandatory. You've got to attempt them all. And if you fail them, there are penalties. So the biggest thing for us at Tough Mudder ETM is actually the penalties, because sometimes the penalties are very easy. You might have to run and do something, but quite often there's a little bit of a twist to said penalties. So the first one I saw was a twist, was the firewalk made of Lego bricks, which thank God I didn't do, which was quite good. But last year, I think Funky Monkey was a good one last year, because you had a teaspoon, and you had to run 10 meters to a mud mound, fill your teaspoon up with mud, run back, and then eventually fill a plastic cup up till it was full. So some of these penalties are a little bit fun. The taxing, there was a really hard one. I remember the first year I did it, which was at Funky Monkey, and you had to have dominoes, set up a domino set, and then to knock them down, that was super hard. I failed that once, and I think it took like nearly 15 minutes because she was cold. Your hands were wet, your hands were shaking, and setting dominoes up to then knock them down was quite difficult. And it wasn't on a level table either. It was on a slanted table. So some of them are fun. Last year, they tried to make it, I want to say, obstacles a little bit fairer. We had a drag of tyres last year, I think was one of them. Can't think what else there was last year. There was the drunken glasses. At some point, they usually have drunken glasses where you spin around.
Yeah, they quite often have so you'll have the stick, and you have those glasses which are like prismed and make you look a bit odd, and then you have to do 5 spins or 10 spins around the stick, and then run up and then back along the course or stuff like that. Croquet is featured before as well. Yeah,
I love the
the
croquet.
penalties.
I actually did the croquet just because I wanted to croquet at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I could have gone up Everest, no problems, but I wanted to play croquet at 2 o'clock in the morning because I just thought that was just a surreal moment to be playing croquet at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Croquet was fun, actually. I enjoyed that. I think the most evil one they've done was Little Mudder.
Yes, that was the first one. That evil, the Little Mudder was.
They had that as that was for. I want to say it was. I was going to. No, it wasn't for EST. It was for.
Was it rings?
Yeah, I think it might have been rings. I can't remember. I wasn't running that year. I was pitting, thankfully. But yeah, it was a complete lap of the Little Mudder course was your penalty for missing that obstacle. That was a brutal. I think it was the rings, yeah. But there was also a bit of a difference at Worlds last year, which we may or may not see. They kind of went back a little bit to including distance, and we may well see that again. We may see that as at toughest, that the penalties include a lot more significant distance. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those that I don't anticipate anything because they always manage to surprise me.
Yeah. I've seen something about wristbands. It's like a band system, right? So you fail, if you fail obstacles, you lose bands and you've got to go back out again with X amount of bands. Is that right?
No, so that's Infinity. So they do things slightly differently at Infinity than they do during Toughest. At Infinity, because it's run alongside the normal events. So Infinity is the 8-9 hour day event. And for that, you'll have a certain number of bands. And there are penalty obstacles. And if you fail, you'll lose a band. And then you do your penalties when you get back into the pit area. Whereas at Toughest, you do your penalties out on course at the obstacles, as opposed to in the pit area. So you'll do them as they go along. I don't anticipate that changing. So I don't think you need to worry so much about bands. I don't think we'll see that unless they decided to change it up, which they might. But they're normally attached to the obstacles. And as Alan said, everything is, if everything is mandatory, other than there'll be the 5-6 kind of penalty obstacle. If it's not got a penalty attached to it, you've got to do it. It's as simple as that. And if you don't, then you can be DNF'd.
Yeah. However, we do get bans. So I'm glad you mentioned bans, because we do get bans after we complete. Is it 3 laps we get a band? 3 laps onwards we get a band?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. I have completely forgotten about that. Yeah, it's normally after your 3rd lap, you'll then get a band which you can use to bypass an obstacle. So there are 2 techniques. You'll either get people that have their one obstacle that they hate, so they'll use their band every lap after that to miss that one thing, or people will stack their bands and then use them on their last lap.
So every lap after 3, you have to go and stay. You have to go to a little booth, little tent thing, little gazebo thing. Tell them you've done it, your name, your number, and they will give you a band. You pop it on your wrist, and on your next lap, you either get to use it or whichever lap. So you can. I think Sean's a good fan of saving them up, isn't he? I know Sean Merriweather, he saves his up, I believe. I didn't last year. So I used all of mine on Mud Mile last year. So every time I hit Mud Mile, I gave him my band.
I've done both. I've done both techniques depending on the course and the obstacles. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the time I'd say it very much depends on how the course is. But yeah, they are brilliant. They get very excited when you get those and you get that one obstacle and you're like, yep, have my band, see ya.
Yeah, I know when they did Northwest, everyone was giving it up on Devil's Beard because Devil's Beard was on a really steep hill and was really tight. And I remember everyone.
Yes, that went. Oh, that was horrendous. Yes. Didn't they have an egg timer option for that one at Northwest?
Yes.
That you put your hand in a bucket and you could pull out an egg timer, and some were like 30 seconds and some were 5 minutes. And that would be the way that was like your optional bypass for it. I think that was on the Toughest.
It was. There was 6. There was only 6, and I learnt this out on lap 4. There was only 6 egg timers in there, and if you looked at them when you got there, they had numbers on the top. So if you saw 2 with 5 on it, you didn't give your band. You put your hand in because you knew you were going to get a 30-second or a 1-minute one, and you're absolutely fine. So just keep an eye on things as you're going round, Sam, because you can sometimes you think an obstacle is going to be quite easy, but it soon takes a lot of energy out of you. So I always say, think quite early on about the band system. So when you get to 3 laps, you know, on my 4th and my 5th and my 6th and whatever, where can I save time? For me, it's all about time. So, you know, I'm going to potentially waste the same energy on most of the obstacles. But for me, if it's going to take me 10 minutes to go through Mud Mile, which it was for me at Midlands, at 10 minutes to go through Mud Mile, I used it on that rather than use it on an obstacle that was going to take 5 minutes on, but was probably a little bit tougher. Well, for me, it was all about getting the time down.
And I suppose if you're really struggling at one point with a cold and you need to warm up, using to skip the water just so you can dry out a little bit because you're suffering with the elements a little bit, it gives you an extra little bit of time before you get cold again.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to use it on water, use it on Funky Monkey. Don't, because Funky Monkey nearly always carries a penalty with it, where Block Ness and Arctic Enemy, although you're going into water, you're not into them for that long. So literally, if you're into the water in them, you're out of it fairly quickly, and you can be running again. Whereas you're Funky Monkey.
The only thing with that is that partly that will depend slightly with something like Block Ness on how high you are. So if I'm in there by myself, quite often they make that thing so deep I can't touch the bottom. Now, if I can touch the bottom, I can get over that obstacle without help. But if I can't touch the bottom, I cannot get over that obstacle without having somebody else in there. So for me, that can be a real decision maker. Whereas Funky, yes, okay, I can fail it. However, I can it becomes a penalty obstacle. It's not something that I'm then going to get stuck at. Whereas you could be stuck waiting at something like Block Ness if you can't get over it by yourself. So again, figure that out early when there's more people on course, rather than at 3-4 o'clock in the morning when there's a lot less people on course, and you'll really notice it as well in the early hours. If there's something that you cannot do without assistance, or there's a risk of you not being able to get out of that doesn't have a penalty attached, then that might be where you need to use your band.
Yeah, I learned something quite good.
That tends to be a short person problem.
Yeah, I learned something quite good with Block Ness last year. What was in the middle of the night was literally, well, you know you're going to come up to it, you know it's going to be within half a mile. So if there's someone close to you in front of you, chase them down, you know, waste a bit of energy, chase them down and say, look, Block Ness is coming up. I'm on my own. Can I just go through it with you guys? Or hand back a little bit, you know, if there's someone just behind you, and, you know, try and time it so that you hit Block Ness with someone.
Together.
Yeah, because it's so hard to get over on, you know what I mean? Even for someone who's as tall as me, who has got a bit of upper body strength, because it's not just, you can't just muscle over it. You've got to muscle.
There's a lot of wasted energy, even if you do it on your own, right?
Yeah. Whereas if you're only one other person, you only really need one other person with you, and you can 9 times out of 10 get over it with minimal energy. But if you're doing it on your own, it's so tough. It's so tough.
So I've written down that I need to look up what Devil's Beard is and what Funky Monkey are. What are the other really nasty ones? I've got to Google and work out what the hell's going on.
Devil's Beard is just a net. I say just. Okay. I use the term just very, very loosely. Funky Monkey, they will probably do something to it, so it's not what it normally is. So like on a standard course, Funky Monkey is has generally been. In fact, they changed it this year at Henley, but it was kind of Spartanified. But it's normally a ladder up onto a wheel that goes around. So it spins you round in a circle.
So that was that really cool rig right at the end that I'm really got FOMO over missing out on.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, there's a wheel that goes kind of round one way, so you're on the same level, and then there's 2 others that you kind of grab and they swing underneath onto a pole. That's what it is normally at a normal event weekend, but they do tend to change that for toughest. So we've seen a couple of years ago they turned it around and you did it backwards. They've added was it last year, Alan, that they added the Spartan twister. So you had the twister going up onto it. So that I would expect to see changes on, definitely. So it's a difficult one to kind of plan for until we see it, really.
If you want if you want to see any of the obstacles, go on to will.ican, that's wil.i.can on YouTube, and Will has all Tough Mudder videos from all over the place, showing you all the obstacles and things like that. So a bit of a plug there for Will. He's YouTube. I can watch his videos all day long, and he films them with a 360 camera, so you get a proper overview of all the obstacles. Not just like a little GoPro where you can film. And he has an Insta 360, so he has some amazing footage out there for people.
Yeah, I mean they have some on the normal Tough Mudder site as well. You can have a look at obstacles, but they tend to just show you the normal ones. Whereas at Toughest, you'll find most things will get adapted, if not from the beginning. At some point throughout, there'll be adaptations made, so that the walls quite often will then become Irish table type things, and stuff like that. But yeah,
that's another tip as well as the walls. The walls can be quite daunting on your own. So if you're coming up to the walls, look for someone who can give you a handover. There's nothing in the rules saying that they can't give you you can't give them an handover, and then they can run back and give you an handover. So once you've done it, you can run back and help someone else. So yeah, if you do that and you see someone struggling, anyone who's doing that, please give them a help, and vice versa. Don't be frightened to ask for help as well.
The walls have changed over the last year as well. They used to have a little lip on them, which again tends to be more of an issue if you're shorter. So I used to be able to get over the walls by myself without any issue at all. Whereas this year, they've not only got rid of that lip, but they've made the sides completely flat. They're far more like the Spartan ones you see. So there's not like the ledge at the side that you can kind of wedge your foot against or anything. So they are more technically difficult, especially if you're shorter, than they have been in previous years. And the other thing they've done as well, there used to be a ledge on the back that was quite high up. So at least once you got over, if you had someone on top, they could kind of stand and help you down. Whereas they've got rid of that too. So there is a ledge, but it's like they've flipped the walls and kept the lower ledge, but they've put it on the back and got rid of the higher ledge, if that makes sense. Yeah. They've definitely made them more difficult, which, as much as it's more difficult for me because I now have to rely on other people until I get to the point that I'm good enough to do it by myself, which I keep working towards, I'd still prefer seeing the things being made more difficult, because this shouldn't be easy, at the end of the day. That's not why we do it.
All right. Well, one of the tips I'll give you as well, Sam, and that is try and keep your hands dry or mud-free. So if you're going into something that's quite muddy, when you get out of there, look for something you can wipe your hands on to get that mud off, because at some point soon after, you're going to come to an obstacle that's going to need a little bit of grip. So get that mud off you as soon as you can. I do carry rags with me. So if I put a rag inside, even if it's just a wet rag, to get the mud off, and I'll just throw it when I get back in the tent and put a new one if I've used it, because the mud is worse. Water's bad, but mud is worse.
Any rules on chalk, liquid chalk, stuff like that?
I haven't seen that. I don't think there was anything in the rules last year. I know at Worlds there's rules regarding it that you can't carry it with you at the Worlds, but I haven't seen in Toughest rules.
I can't remember off the top of my head. You'd have to double check the rule book. Although, to be honest, things tend to get so wet that I don't really find it to be that effective.
Yeah, liquid chalk is not going to help a whole lot if your hands are soaking wet and muddy anyway.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Some of the best things to dry your hands on are actually the stakes they use for marking. So if you get your hands around the stake and
stakes are brilliant.
Dry them on that.
They're my go-to. Especially if I know something's coming up, you'll see me stopping and kind of wiping my hands off and then walking along with my hands in the air whilst I'm trying to dry them off generally in vain before I get to something. But yeah, the stakes are a good shout for getting your hands dry.
Cool. What else have I got? We had distances. So is there a minimum distance that you are expected to run to still get any form of, and how does it work? Is it like patches, medals? I don't know what the reward system is for ETM. So I know like Infinity, you get distance patches, right? So you get like 30 mile, 35 mile, 40 mile sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So from memory, sorry, Alan, from memory, you have to do a minimum of 2 laps to be an official finisher. That's the minimum. And you're also not allowed to leave the pit area before.
Yeah, so bear that in mind, Sam. If you do only do say 3 or 4 laps and at midnight, or 2 o'clock in the morning, that, you think your race is over, or anyone else who's listening to this, your race is over, do not leave the pit area. You have to stop in the pit area, otherwise you DNF. If you leaving the pit, your pit crew can leave, but you can't leave.
And that's until the end of the 12 hours.
Until the end of the 12 hours, yes. Yes.
And my intention is, even if I'm walking around the course, my intention is, out of a matter of pride, I want to be still going on the 12-hour mark. Just because otherwise, why the hell am I trying to do it? But obviously, I've never done it, and the reality might be very different.
So you don't. So something that differs between toughest and worlds, you don't have a grace period. So if you're still on course at that 12-hour point, that last lap is not going to count.
Okay.
A very good friend of mine who I pitted for a few years ago aged me by about 10 years when he managed to cross the finish line with about 2 minutes to spare. And it was brilliant watching it. It was brilliant. We were at Midlands and he'd come out of the woodland. This Gary Andrews, who is doing phenomenally well over the last couple of years. Anybody that knows me knows how awesome he is. And will continue to be. He's going to hate that shout out, by the way. But he came out of the woodlands and there was a bunch of rings, and he literally, you saw him running towards the rings, and he chucked a bypass band he didn't stop running, literally just threw it towards the volunteer as he sprinted past, and then came up and over to Mudderhorn, and I've never seen someone go up Mudderhorn so fast and literally cross the finish line with a minute or two to spare. So just be aware, by all means push, but if you're on course at that 12-hour cutoff, that last lap will not count towards your overall finish time.
So, yeah. But, regarding medals and that, we got medals last year. I think it was like little medals that clipped onto to your bands, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, did they introduce the same little metal ones we get from Infinity for mileage? Because I know previously it's been patches. So you'll get a patch depending on once you've hit a certain mileage, and that goes up. I can't remember if they still did those or not last year. I think they did, because I certainly got one. Pretty sure I got one of those when I went out to Twin Cities. When I actually did enough mileage to get one. I didn't do enough at Europe's last year, as I say. I had to be sensible and pull out. But normally it's a patch, a sew-on patch, and then your medal. And they also obviously do age group medals, etc. Once the event's over.
Yeah, at 16 stone, I don't think I'm going to be doing anything like competing with some of the fast people in my age category. I've just turned 40, and I naively thought I would start competing at 40, being the youngest in my age group, and I have a good shout. So I did my first competitive race at Spartan Beast, and I came like 55th out of 60, because it turns out the 40-year-olds are faster than the 20-year-olds.
Oh, wow.
You would be surprised, because it's a very different beast going and doing something like the sprint or the super to doing the overnight race. I am by no means, and Alan's seen me do events before, I am by no means the fastest person in the world at all. I never have been, I never will be. And yet I've somehow managed to get an age group podium, which was the year before. Year before last, I got an age group podium at Europe's. And last year I got an age group podium at Twin Cities. And I was just like, how is that even possible? So don't rule it out, because you might surprise yourself, because a lot of people just can't hack the cold. You've got to be the biggest thing about toughest. You've got to be willing to be uncomfortable. It is going to be at some point. If you're not cold, I would be very surprised. If you're not tired and questioning your life choices, then I would be very surprised. But if you've got that mental attitude to be able to push through when it's cold and uncomfortable and not very nice, then you could very well surprise yourself with how you do.
So the reason I've ended up doing all these ultras was literally because I did the ultra last year. I did it to raise money for mine. So I did all the Spartans. And I never thought I'd run a half marathon. And I did that for the first time. Then I did an ultra. I haven't done a marathon yet. And so I'm just doing more and more stupid distances. So I was supposed to be doing Trifecta. Then I'm doing ETM. Then I'm doing Nuclear Oblivion. And then I'm doing Spartan Ultra again. And I just want to find what makes me get down on my knees and go no more, but I haven't found it yet. I'm slow and I'm not the best runner in the world, but I haven't given up yet.
Well, I look forward to seeing you at World's Toughest Mudder next year then.
Do you know what? If my wife gave me a pass for it, probably. She wants to go to Disney with the kids, so I need to try and tie it in so I can just pop off for 24 hours.
Oh, well, if you want to do that, you need to do it this year, because this year we're at Florida, whereas next year, who knows where we're going to be.
Yeah, I can't see us getting away with that. I'll run it by her though. I'll ask her. I'll take you to Disney if I can have a 24-hour pass.
The biggest thing at Tough Mudder for me at quitting is between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Well, between 1 and 3. It's called the witching hour. And when I do a lot of night runs, so I do a lot of ultras that go through the night and things like that, and you see the numbers drop off. You know, it's like, because people won't have slept through the day. It's no matter how much you plan you're going to sleep, you know, you're not going to sleep. You're literally going to get an hour or maybe 2 at the most through the day. And when you get to that time, you're tired, your body's tired, you're physically tired, your mind's tired. But for me, if you can get to 2:30, and if you can be on course at 2:30, then you need to stop out, because when you get to 4:30 on that next lap is going to be the greatest lap ever, because the sun comes up. And when people say to me, you're out there on a course, the sun's going to come up, you're going to be absolutely overjoyed, I was like, no. Last year at Midlands, when I was on there, the sun came up, and it came up over Beaver Castle as I was going to Augustus Globe, and it was the best sight ever. And it kept me going right through till 8 o'clock. You know, literally, I was no stopping then. I was like, yeah, now I'm running, I'm continuing. You've got to fight that sleep deprivation and hallucinations. Don't think you're not going to get them. At some point, you're going to have an hallucination. It could be that
I've never had one.
You not. You've never had one, Leanne?
Never had one.
I dreamt.
Not during a race, anyway.
I dreamt that Jesus was riding a cockerel at Northwest. Jesus was riding a giant cockerel at Northwest. It was in the trees, and I saw it on every lap from about lap 4 onwards. And it was a red light shining up into the trees. But I swore it was Jesus.
I remember that light. That's brilliant. I really liked Northwest. I was dreading Northwest, because it's probably my least favourite course for a number of reasons. So I was dreading it when Europe's went there, and actually really enjoyed it. It was one of my favourite.
Yeah, me too.
But I know a lot of people
I'm going to love Yorkshire. I just love ETM. ETM's brilliant. So
I've only got a couple more. I assume that there's like normal Tough Mudder merchandise shop and stuff that's open during the day, closes at night, but obviously we can do that when we get there.
Yes.
What's the big?
Or it'll be open again on the Sunday as well, because there's Sunday stuff too.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of feel like I need to buy myself a location patch, but I'm not buying it till I finish the race, because otherwise it's just a reminder of what I failed.
Yeah.
I've got, what's the biggest don't, as in like rookie schoolboy error, the biggest don't?
Oh, that's a good question.
Don't forget your head torch. Don't forget your head torch. And don't forget a spare head torch and batteries. So I always say people take 2. I've got a rechargeable head torch, but I actually have a battery pack on mine.
About 5.
Yeah. I'll be taking several, I know I will. But yeah, don't forget a head torch. I don't know. The biggest don't for me on course.
Don't be selfish.
Yeah.
Don't be selfish. Like, I mean, nobody expects you to kind of turn around and destroy your race by helping other people. But there's nothing more frustrating when you see someone just, if you've given someone a hand and then they just fly off in the distance. That's people are tired. You don't know what other people's races are like. You don't know what's going on, but having a decency to people, which generally everybody does just help out, and it's brilliant, and it's one of the reasons we love it and we keep coming back. But I think that would probably be mine, although that's probably not quite answering the question in terms of like what bit of kit or whatever would be.
No, but I guess the whole thing is, from someone who comes from Spartan, which is, yes, we stop and help each other. I'm all about, I do 1 race and then I do 2 opens because I'm an ambassador. I wasn't, but even when I wasn't, I still, like, if I see someone struggling on a wall, I'm gonna give them a leg up. If there's someone struggling with monkey bars, I'll give them some pointers. but I guess it's still a race. Whereas this is a different animal, right? This is about an endurance finishing, and it might make a real difference if you're helping someone else, that when they come to block nests or whatever, you're helping each other and you're getting through it, or you're getting really dark and they just go, here, have some gummies and get through. And just that teamwork thing will make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to flip it and say a do, which is a do say hello to everyone as you're going around the course. If I'm near you,
and thank the volunteers. Show your appreciation to those volunteers, because again, having been out there as a volunteer as well, like, believe me, what they're getting for being out there and allowing us to race that is they should be getting far more than they do, and the race wouldn't happen without them. So I would, yeah, definitely with that. In terms of the one thing I always make sure I have with me out on a lap, and I do the same thing at World. If nothing else, I always have a mini Snickers, and the amount of people, and even if I don't use it, the amount of people I've seen struggling and hitting that struggle bus that I've gone, look, have this, and it's been just what they need to get them back to pit to get what they need to go on from there. I've lost count of the amount of times I've done that. So that's like my one thing that I will always have and always do, and it's as much for other people as it is for me. But yeah,
someone did it for me on my ultra. I managed like a complete, I did all my planning. I had my 2 kit bricks done, and I had 2 separate hydration vests planned and packed, and one had no food in it, but so I just put what I needed from the first lap, and one had all my food in it. And of course, numbnuts here took the empty one that just had gels and salts in it and no food. So I did 18 miles on no food. But the amount of people that were just like, well, here, have some block, and here, have some gummies. Someone gave me a packet of Percy Pigs and stuff. And yeah, it just makes such a huge difference.
Massively so.
Yeah.
Massively so.
Don't give up on your nutrition. If you're doing a lap, so me for my first lap, I'll be trying to do my first lap under an hour.
Yeah,
that will be my sprint lap under an hour. Hopefully, I'm going to get well under that. But on my first lap, I will have a drink when I come in. I'll only be in there a few seconds, but I will have a drink. And on my second lap, there'll be food. Don't skip for fun runners, and people who are not racing at the top level. Don't skip your food or your drink in the pits to save time, because you will need it later on. You might not need it that next lap, but you'll definitely need it 2 or 3 or 4 laps later on, because that's when your energy levels will start to go. So keep your energy levels topped up.
And also on that, like when people are thinking about food, and this is more, as I say, I know you guys both done these type of races before. So whilst I know you've not done Europe's before, Sam, I know you've done, say, the type of races where you've got to think about your nutrition. But for people that might be listening, and this is the first time, when you're thinking about what you might want to eat, also remember, as that race gets on, like when you're getting to those early hours in the morning and you're tired, you're not going to want to eat proper food. So something for me, and again, everybody's different, that I found that it could be quite a game changer for me is baby food, because I'm getting something in that I don't actually need to swallow. So find those comfort foods, but also think about those things and rice pudding as well is another one that is a great little one for me when I don't really want to eat, but I know that I have to. Make those kind of choices and think about those things that really are going to make you your happy foods, if you like. Easy to eat and happy foods are my two kind of nutrition things to think about.
I'll just jump on that baby food thing as well, Leanne, because I've tried the baby food thing. If you're going to do it, if you want to do it, test it beforehand, but test it with a run, because I tested it without running, thought, oh, this tastes good, I can handle this. And then I went and did a 60 miler on it, took 3 packs of baby food with me, and I ended up getting 30 miles into it before I was having to jump behind walls and bushes in the Peak District to empty my stomach. So just bear that in mind, people. If you're going to take baby food, it doesn't agree with everyone, and I know a lot of ultra runners do it, and it's brilliant if you can, but test it on a long run first. Don't do what I did.
I mean, I would argue you should do that with any nutrition, but yeah.
I would as well, yeah. But especially baby food, because I had it.
And obviously, make sure you go for the ones that you like. If you're going to go for baby food, I don't be having a lasagna or go for the ones like there's like a Ella range. Ella, I think it's Deliciously Ella or Simply Ella or something. It's brilliant. But yeah,
cool. Have we got anything else, Sam, before we wrap this up?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. The only other one I've got was, in terms of food vendors and stuff, I'm assuming they're there during the day, but they close up at night while we're racing, and then we'll open up again in the morning. There's not going to be something for like the pit crew to go and get food at. They need to either arrange it or order out, as you said.
I would 8 o'clock last year. They closed. No, I think there was one open till late last year at Midlands, till about 9-10 o'clock. But then they open up quite early in the morning, don't they, Leanne? I think about 7 o'clock. Some of them are open.
Yeah. So I would always recommend people come self-sufficient. There is normally a tent which has an urn with hot water, things like bananas, fruit, and maybe some noodles or something. But generally, it does at least have hot water, microwaves, and tea. But don't rely on it, because if they break, you don't want to be scuppered. So I would always suggest to people, be prepared. Obviously, pit crew can go out and get stuff, but yeah, I tend to go with the idea of just be ready and prepared to do what you need to without having to leave site or rely on something else.
I have already bought myself a self-brewing espresso machine.
Like it. I'll share tents for you, Nelson.
I need to make sure I know where your pit is.
My sports massage therapist does it, and it's literally per charge you get like 4 or 5 espressos out of it, and it boils its own water.
Oh,
so that is brilliant.
Game changer.
I didn't know about that. You need to let me know where to get one.
I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Guys, and I think we'll wrap it up there. To all our listeners out there, thank you for listening. I hope to see you at Tough Mud. I know I'm going to see these two crazy people and Louise out there as well. It has been a pleasure. So, Leanne, we'll come to you first. Do you want to say, give anyone a shout out? I know you give Andy a shout, but anyone a shout out before we go?
I will give a shout out to my coach, because she's had to put up with a lot with me this year. DB athlete, Lisa, she's absolutely brilliant. If you are looking at trying to up your game and you want someone to push you, then I can't recommend her enough.
Fantastic. And Sam, I know you've got your own business, so where can people find you?
So I'm Windsor based. If you want to see me in person, I'm a 15-year experienced osteopath, and I've got a strength and conditioning background. But I do remote rehab, online coaching but rehabilitation. I don't do personal training and that sort of stuff. My thing is getting you from the treatment room back to your coach, back to your trainer. So they can reach out to me at Sam Hall Osteopaths for any of that, and I'm more than happy to do remote stuff, meet you at races and do consultations with you at races, so we can meet in person if needed. And I'm launching, expanding that side of things for the next 2 years anyway. So yeah, that's me.
Perfect. So you can't have Sam for ETM, because I'm going to book him to take me from my tent to my car. But thank you, everyone, and thank you guys for joining me. You take care, you stay safe, and keep on running.